Nam mô Bát Nhã Hội Thượng Phật Bồ Tát. Nam mô Bát Nhã Hội Thượng Phật Bồ Tát.
So the title of this video is From Gangster Disciple to Buddhist Monk.
From Gangster Disciple to Buddhist Monk.
That's
another episode.
video.
Yeah, that's episode 7. We'll talk about why 7, because that's a gang number.
Yeah.
Episode 7. Why 7? We'll talk about
great.
that. Episode 7. So this is episode 1 of Conversations with Modern Contemplatives. I like the translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi and others of the word saramana in Pali and Sanskrit, which means contemplative among many other things. And we are on the path that is timeless, goes back thousands of years. Those who have went forth, who left a homeless life, seeking liberation, emancipation, complete awakening, nirvana, nibbana. So a monk or a nun, which are Western terms, in the Buddhist traditions are contemplatives. And that's a good word for you to look up. I won't give you the meaning. You should investigate, what does it mean to be a contemplative? So the monk to my right is Bhante Varrapanyo. This is the first time we met in person. It's been a long time coming. I am who I am, and some of the experiences I've had, which are precious, wouldn't have been possible were it not for Bhante Varrapanyo, so I'm grateful. He is my elder brother in monastic life, so sadhu. In worldly life, he's my younger brother.
That's right.
In physical age. You get that a lot in Buddhism. Somebody is your elder brother, but 10 or more years younger. So it's a good opportunity to practice humility. So we'll start off by asking the question, who is Bhante Varrapanyo? What was your name before you became a monk? Tell us a bit about your pre-monk life experiences.
Yeah, so my name before I became a monk was Robert, and actually the fourth, Robert Davis the fourth. So my father's name, same as my name, my grandfather's name, same as my name, great-grandfather's name, same as my legal name, the name that was given to me. So before I was a monk, I grew up in America, on the East Coast, and my parents were divorced at a pretty young age. That was difficult. Traveled around a lot, going back and forth between homes, and also the locations of those homes were always changing. You know, my mom was changing homes, my dad was changing homes. So it was in the Washington, D.C. area, Maryland area, but not one particular place. So I never went to one school for more than a few years, sometimes just 1 year. And so I had kind of a scattered upbringing, both in family life and, neighborhood life. People who I lived around, people who I knew I would have very close best friends and almost be adopted by their families with how close we were. And then bing, bang, boom, you never see them again because you're traveling, you're moving. So that definitely affected me a lot as I was growing up. That changing from place to place and never having that real deep attachment, which kids need to have, I think, at a young age. It was just so much movement.
Most deaf.
So eventually, I graduated from high school somehow. You know, my last year of high school, I was basically dropping out. I missed 40 days, 50 days of school, not for like a cool reason, because I was smoking or doing drugs or doing anything. I was just asleep. You know, I was just exhausted by my
Lifestyle.
by my lifestyle. Yeah, staying up late and not seeing the value in school and not really connecting with why I was going there. So my final year of high school, I couldn't even graduate with my class. I had to go to summer school because I got straight E's in English class. And that's my best subject, actually, is English and language. I really love that, reading and all that. But the teacher in that class would just let me sleep. So I would just sleep every class. And so I failed all 4 semesters of my senior year. After I graduated, I didn't see the point or the meaning in anything. Having a job, going to college, nothing was connecting with me. It wasn't clear about why I would do that. You know, why will I go to college? I didn't have the mindset that I would ever need a job. And that's not because my family was super wealthy. It's just I was able to live at my grandparents' house and, you know, I was staying there doing nothing. So eventually I got into a pretty heavy depression and, you know, anxiousness after high school and just not doing anything. And that led me to start traveling to various places. So I went down to Florida on a whim. You know, I saw like a live-in kind of like healthcare coach job that I found on Craigslist in Florida. So and it was a weird situation, but I went down there. I was there for 2 weeks, and then I met someone. I was 18, 19 at this time. Then I moved up to Florida, or moved up to New York State, upstate New York, and I lived there for a while. And so I kind of went through this process of traveling out and then burning out, you know, things not working out and coming back home. And eventually that traveling became spiritually oriented. So I had heard about Alan Watts, Eckhart Tolle, psychedelics. You know, I experienced with psychedelics, a Native American church, you know, going to like peyote meetings. Powwow peyote meeting overnight, take a bunch of peyote and with a shaman and with a bunch of people in a teepee. And I found that I had very strong spiritual experiences in doing that, but it wasn't what I needed. What I needed was to be grounded, you know, to stabilize and to really get that that base of health the grounding. It's just not what I had. So I even tried the Hare Krishnas. You know, they actually flew me out for their indoctrination program.
Wow, there's a lot of experiences.
Yeah, from the East Coast to, this is like 2 years after I graduated high school. And so that, you know.
You were on the East Coast at that time, right? You were coming from the East Coast.
I was at a period where I had kind of burned out, ended up back with where my family lives, and then flew out to become a Hare Krishna for a 3-month program.
Interesting.
So intense experiences, but nothing was really connecting. And then eventually I found myself living in a apartment that my mom got me in Washington, D.C., because she's a property manager. And she hooked me up with a job as well. So I was 20 years old, just living in this apartment and working and drinking and smoking and trying to find some way to cover up my suffering, to get rid of my suffering. And it was at that point that I heard about a Buddhist meditation center, and I applied to live there. And that was a Japanese Zen style meditation center.
Zazen.
Zazen, residential retreat center. So I applied and they accepted me, and I went from, you know, one of the lowest points of my mental health and social health, just being isolated and destitute and just a mess, to living at this meditation retreat center and getting into intensive meditation practice. And
this is around 19, right?
this is 2021. So
Oh,
this is like in
21.
2015 when
If I may ask, what's your age? I didn't ask.
I'm 28.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
so I'm 40. You see that?
But I'll be 29
younger,
soon.
physical younger.
Yeah,
Bro.
I'll be 29 soon.
Wow.
So that's that year of, it's really three things. It's the three jewels. It was being around the Buddha, which is meditation, right? The Buddha's meditation. Being around the Dharma, the teachings, the skillful ways, and the Sangha. That was a big part of it too. Being around these people who were just kind and compassionate and selfless in so many ways. And so to be in that environment for a year, it just drastically changed my mind, and that set me on the path of being a Buddhist and eventually becoming a monk.
This is perfect because this will segue into the second question, which is very popular because lay people ask this all the time. What made you become a monk, right? Which are good questions, they're popular, but there's always a different answer every time, right? Many different factors, but whatever you would like to share with us regarding your inspiration. You mentioned Ajahn Brahm.
Sure, Ajahn
right?
Brahm.
So he played a role in
inspiration,
impetus, the part of the force driving you to become a monk.
Yeah, Ajahn Brahm's really great. I think I probably didn't know so much about him until after I became a monk. But a few people that I had contact with the Hare Krishna monks. So I knew that was something from my experience with them, that you could like be a monk. And they're not Buddhist monks, but similar in some ways. And then I had this deep experience with meditation and Buddhism. So those were big contributing factors, but the main thing why I became a monk is because I wanted to get away from suffering. You know, I wanted to run away from, I wanted to fix, I wanted to solve suffering. You know, there was this deep awareness, clear awareness of suffering, pain, instability, dissatisfaction, and also an awareness that it's possible to do something about it. From, you know, living at this meditation center and going from such a intensely mentally ill position, really, to being relatively healthy, you know, and even being someone who can help other people deal with their suffering, just from that year of intensive practice. So those influences eventually led me to when I really reached the point of material success in lay life, like having a good job and a good relationship and good things and all that still wasn't it. I realized that just feeding myself pleasure wasn't, and being able to do that was not the solution to my dissatisfaction. Yeah, so I had to experience that real success in doing that. And it was at that point that I started the process of leaving behind a home, leaving behind a job, leaving behind a relationship, all these possessions, and reaching out to Buddhist monks, and then moving to Thailand.
Yes, you saw the drawbacks, the sorrow, the lamentation, in what for most people is the greatest joy, the greatest aspiration in life. Beautiful woman, sex on deck, right? Sex
That's right.
on hand.
That's right.
Touch of a tap of a smartphone.
That's
Or a
right.
text message away.
That's right.
Right? Most of us back in the day, we would articulate it that way, but that's pretty much our life, you know. That's happiness. That's being successful.
Yeah.
Right? But you broke away from that.
Yeah.
And you saw the drawbacks, the sorrow, the lamentation, the vexation, and all of that. And I can relate to that as well. I want to go back briefly to something you mentioned and then end with talking about your zeals, your wholesome passions, we could use that word. The word chanda can be translated in different ways. So in Buddhism, we don't denounce all pleasure and zeal. There's the lofty, the wholesome, the kusala, chanda, such as helping others, which I want to ask you soon about your intentions with working with children and helping them learn English. But back to the psychedelics, because this is something I experienced back in the day. And many people I've noticed have extreme views. They're either totally against it or they're totally into it, and that's all they do, and they have to have it to have breakthroughs. So just briefly, regarding psychedelics and meditations, would you say that you've been able to integrate the insights you had through psychedelic usage into your practice?
So,
do you think that was beneficial regarding who you are today? And did it play a role in your decision to become a monk, and has it affected your mindfulness and meditation abilities, skills?
Yeah. So I think that it did play a role, certainly, because I experimented with psychedelics. A lot of things played roles, some more wholesome, some less wholesome. Psychedelics tend to be right in the middle. Psychedelics are not inherently wholesome. They're not inherently helpful, necessarily. And they're not, I don't think, inherently evil or wrong to do. I wouldn't be here if the experiences that I've had up to now didn't happen, right? That's why I'm here, because of those causes and conditions coming together. I think that in the right environment, and science is showing this, that psychedelics can be used medicinally to support mental health, to support maturation, internal growth. But in terms of personal use, I wouldn't recommend them outside of the proper environment. And the reality is that you're probably not going to find that proper environment. And it's a kind of risky thing to do. And it goes back to, I don't think they're inherently bad. I also don't think they're inherently good. It's not quite the same as alcohol or opiates.
Right.
But it's also not, inherently spiritual. It's something that you take and it has an effect, and maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not. But it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Somebody here at the temple was saying that recently, and that's what it is. So sometimes you experience a sprint, but then you're exhausted. And it's what you do from that exhaustion that is that really matters. Yeah.
Yes, excellent answer. I concur. I agree with 100%, 100. So regarding your aspirations now going forward, you seem to have a great altruistic drive, impetus, propelling you to make your practice less self-centered and more social, more altruistic. So you have mentioned recently, I think in one of your posts,
Facebook posts.
yes, that you want to help children, work with them and teaching them English. And also you've posted in the past videos and teaching meditation to children, using the monkey mind example, which was wonderful. So we can end on that note, on that question.
Yeah, altruism is very inspiring to me, and I think it allows me to, and that's like helping others, allows me to really change where I exist in the social framework, in the social reality that we live in, and to change the social reality as well. And so one of the things that I like to do is, or that I hope to do, is working with children in Asia. It can be very empowering for them to learn English. It can be very empowering for anyone in Buddhist countries. They tend to be a little bit less developed in terms of economics and education and all that, to have an opportunity to learn English with a native speaker. But that's more secondary. I really enjoy working with children because there's something very special about giving children an equal footing to me, and not seeing them as a lesser or lower, or usually in the social world, children are the lowest rung of people.
Correct.
And I think that ageism is something that is...
you said ageism?
Ageism,
Nice.
that's right.
Ageism.
Ageism is something that, is worthwhile to look at and to address. How much respect and respect do we show for children and their legitimacy in terms of what they are experiencing. And that goes for other isms as well, like racism and ableism, discriminating against people with different abilities, things like that.
True.
So it's empowering to do that, and I think that a lot of kids, young people, are not getting exposure to really in-depth self-help resources, to learn mental regulation, to learn emotional regulation. And especially in the West, kids coming up in our education system, Western education system, they're not taught anything about managing their emotions or controlling their mind.
Yes.
And they're also, they get a toughness about them. And so I feel like as a monk and as Western monks, we have a unique ability to kind of connect with those younger people, teens in the US, kids who would never otherwise be exposed to anything self-help related, and now you've got them talking to a Buddhist monk about meditation and living an ethical life. And yeah, I get called Ang every now and again, and people say silly things. Sometimes people are disrespectful, these Western kids that I work with sometimes, mostly online, but so what? It's going out of my way to be helpful to other people, and that empowers me. So I try to continue doing that in my practice. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for your time and your wisdom, sharing your lived experience, Sadhu. So this concludes episode 1. I decided to create this series because it is a fact that Western monks, there seem to be a lot of us, but as we were discussing earlier, we're a small group in the world. Maybe 1%. We could actually look up the data. It won't be what we think it is.
Sure, it's only very few.
Yeah, very few. And when I say Western, I mean Canadian, European, Australian, like Ajahn Brahm and Kaliko Bhikkhu and so on. You can count on your hand the most famous monks that are of Western origin. Yeah. Many of them in the Ajahn Chah, Thai forest tradition. But thanks to technology, we're connected now, and I can create this and share it with the masses. So, Sadhu, Wadami, Buddham, Dhanam, Sangham, Namasami.
Thanks for having me, Bhante.
Pleasure.